So when trying to start a fire with flint and steel, you're trying to first make that spark fall on some char cloth where it will hold and start to slowly burn. And then you want to put that into a nest of something that's highly flammable, which you can blow on and cause to start to get into a real flame, which can then ignite some of the sticks and twigs that you've got and then build your campfire. So where do you get that nest of stuff? Well, in the wild, you might use milkweed, dander, or other natural fibers. You're looking for very fine stuff. But I find one of the easy things to carry with me in these circumstances is my own source of natural fiber, which is jute. Well, what is jute? Jute is a fiber that you use to make twine. Here, I don't know if you can see this. So this is a spool of twine. You can get it at any Home Depot. It's just this coarse brown stuff, the kind of stuff that people use to like tie up sticks and yard waste. And we can take this and create a little nest that will catch fire. And how do we do that? We're going to take a knife or scissors, and we're going to cut like a foot or maybe 2 1-foot sections of it. So having this little section of jute twine, what I basically need to do is to unwind it. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here, but it's all wound together, and I just want to unwind it. So first, you can divide it into the 3 big strands, and then each of these can be further divided. So here's one of those 3 main strands from that piece of jute twine, and what you need to do is to start to unwind it. The way I do that is just kind of turn it the other way, the opposite direction. It starts to loosen up, and then you can start to pull it apart. Okay? The key is, don't get satisfied too early until you've really pulled it down into to like almost fiber by fiber. It's got to be as small as you can make it. Okay? What you're trying to do is produce these fibers so small that a big lump of them takes up is separated by a lot of air. It's lots of tiny fibers separated by a lot of air. Okay? And when you do that, so if I keep pulling this apart, you can see that you can get this down to very small fibers. And if you do this with enough of it, which isn't actually that much, it's about 1.5 feet, 2 feet, you can get together a nice softball-sized piece of this fluff. And that's what I'm doing right here. I don't know if you can see this. But this is that twine pulled apart. And now it's just this very light, airy thing of lots of fibers that are all separated out, so there's lots of air between everything. And as you know, oxygen is one of the important components to get a fire started. By having these tiny fibers surrounded by lots of air, this is like the most explosive thing that can happen. Okay, my daughter's looking at me like she thinks, what am I saying? But have you ever heard of wheat silos exploding? When little bits of powder get mixed up in air, it can be, and they catch, a spark hits it, the bits of flour can burn, but it'll be just an explosive force. So silos can explode because of this. This pile of fluff here, it is so flammable. If you just look at it with bad intentions, it might light on fire. And we'll try and show that in a little bit. So we've just seen how to make char cloth. Now let's see if we can't use that char cloth. I'm going to try and use that char cloth to start a fire using flint and steel. In this case, I'm going to actually use a piece of the rock flint and a piece of steel. All right, and by striking the steel onto the flint, I'm going to generate sparks. How, you might ask? It's kind of an interesting question. So for those of you who don't know why we use flint specifically, not just any old rock, it's because flint's very hard, very, very hard. And you can break it so it has a sharp edge. The flint is so hard that when the steel is struck against it, the flint will actually shave off tiny pieces of steel, of iron, off of this steel. Those pieces of iron will fly off into the air. Exposed to oxygen, they instantaneously oxidize or rust, which is to say they burn. Okay, that's what the spark is. It's a tiny piece of burning iron that's generated by the flint shaving pieces off of the piece of steel. The steel's got to be very hard. You can't just use ordinary steel. This has got to be a very hard, not stainless steel, a very hard carbon steel, so that it breaks and shaves like this. Let's see how it works. So now I've placed the piece of char cloth. I'm holding it against the back of the flint, and now I'm going to try to strike the steel onto the flint, produce a spark, and see if I can get one to land on the char cloth. There we go, it's caught. Laying it down here on some lint. And that is how you make fire from a stone. So, you can see that you can have some good results with that. It's not as easy as it may have looked. We cut out a few minutes of spark. We cut out a few minutes of trying to get a spark and trying to get it to catch. But it is possible. I'm out of practice. I haven't done this in years. But you can see but I also used here a little bit of dryer lint inside the jute. I'm not convinced it helped me all that much, but that's what I did. I think there's a lot of trial and error, and if you want to use that method, you just need, like any method, you need to practice it and get better at it. Certainly the lens method we showed at the previous video. But I hope this demonstrated how to make char cloth and how useful it can be in making fire with primitive means. Thank you.